We'll get started. My name is Stephen Beal. I'm here to talk about how to buy a business. I run a business brokerage and valuation firm, so we help people buy and sell businesses, and we do valuations on them. So what I want to talk about today are sort of the tips from your point of view, from a buyer's point of view. What are the things for you to look out for? I mean, some of the things that were mentioned. I mean, you want to be your own boss, have job security. You know, as long as the business is going well, of course. Control your hours was mentioned, and like I said, I mean, I sort of laugh a bit as an entrepreneur. I laugh and think, well, yeah, I can control my hours as long as I work more than 60. You can build equity. Obviously, if you have a job, you can't sell your job at the end. I guess you might have a pension if you're lucky enough to work for a big employer or the government. You have a pension, but if you're just working for a living for someone else, you probably don't have a pension unless you're doing it yourself with an RSP. But with the business, you can. You can at the end of your career, you can turn around and sell your business or leave it to your kids. So it could be a family affair. So that's sort of good reasons as to why to own a business. So those are all things we think of when we say, gee, I want to own a business because I can do all this. Well, why not just start one? So why buy instead of starting a business? So any thoughts on that? Pardon me? It's already been proven? Yeah. The sweat equity to start. So yeah, so it's a proven system. It would have taken a lot for that person to start the business. It's up and running, turnkey. Any other thoughts on why buy rather than start? Established reputation, yeah. Yeah. In general, it's cheaper, faster, and safer to buy an existing business that's doing what you want it to do than to try and start one your own. I started this business about 15 years ago, and I started it from scratch because there was no comparable business that I could buy, and so I had to start it from scratch. But I look back, the first 3 years, I made almost nothing. I certainly made less than I had made in my previous job, and so that's 3 years of low income, not earning enough to really pay the bills. So when you buy a business, you got profits from day one. You've got an established market presence, so it's there. They've done their sweat equity. They've done their work. If the business is of any size, they have staff that come with the business. They've got processes. You're not adding to competition. So if you want to get into a certain type of business, and there's, say, 10 of those businesses in Winnipeg right now, if you start, you're number 11, and you're now competing with those other 10. But if you buy one of those 10, you're not adding to the competition. Typically, when you buy a business, the seller will train you. So they'll stay on for, a negotiated period, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever, to train you in how to run that business. In some cases, the seller may help finance. I want to be cautious here because a lot of sellers don't want to finance at all. But in some cases, the seller may help you finance it. And the bank financing is a bit more possible. If you want to start, say, a restaurant, banks don't like restaurants. They're very risky. So if you're going to borrow money to start a restaurant, you probably have to put up your house or whatever as collateral. Maybe your firstborn, who knows? But if you're buying an existing restaurant that's got a proven cash flow, the bank may look at that a bit more leniently than if you're trying to do a startup. So why buy a business now? So in general, as baby boomers are aging, a report suggested that over the next 15 years, 75% of existing businesses will change hands. So that's all the baby boomers, people born between 46 and 61, are now in their 60s or late 50s, and so they're looking at selling. Now it's interesting. Because full disclosure, this stat was actually released 15 years ago. So you'd say, well, I guess it's already happened. Well, it actually hasn't happened because sort of on the opposite direction, people are getting healthier and healthier, and they're living longer. So I'm talking to 70-year-olds who should be selling their business or should have sold it 10 years ago, but they're enjoying it, they're healthy, why sell? So this 15 years is probably just optimistic. We're probably now, I'm starting to see more and more people in the 50 to 70 year bracket who are now looking to sell. So this wave is starting to pick up. So from a buyer's point of view, what do you need? First of all, you need money, obviously. The downside of buying versus starting is you need a big chunk up front. If you're starting a business, you could start on a shoestring from your house, and maybe you can start with, get 1,000 business cards printed for $100 and you're in business. But if you're buying a business, it'll cost you something right up front. So you need some amount of money. You need skills. You have to run a business. Depending on the type of business, whatever it is, you might need that skill set. You also need to know what you're looking for. It's sort of like buying a house. Do you want 2 bedrooms or 3 or what area, that type of thing. So the more you know what you want, the better you can narrow it down. I talk to a lot of business buyers and they sort of say, well, I can run anything. Well, first of all, that's probably not true. Second of all, it helps. There's just too many choices out there. If you can run any type of business, well, that's too wide of a choice. So I'll give you a bunch of questions to ask yourself in terms of trying to narrow that down, and then a knowledge of the process. So these 4 things we'll sort of cover right now. In terms of money, you'll need cash down of a certain amount. And despite what you might see on late night TV, those things of buy real estate with no money down or buy businesses with no money down, that just doesn't happen in the business world. You'll need a certain amount of cash down. Now, to the extent it does happen with, quote, no cash down, even with real estate, is no cash down because you're pledging a bunch of other assets. So yeah, I could buy real estate with none of my cash down because I'm going to put a second mortgage on my house. Well, that's your cash down payment. So so you want liquid, unencumbered cash, typically anywhere from 25 to 50%. The exact amount is going to depend on the type of business that you buy. If you've shopped for a house, you can go to the bank, you can get a pre-approved mortgage. So the bank will look at you, they'll say, okay, you have a down payment of $50,000, and you've got a job where you're earning $50,000 a year, and maybe your spouse is earning $50,000 a year, and the bank will run through their numbers and say, we can pre-approve you for a $300,000 mortgage. And so when you're going home shopping, that helps because you can put in a firm offer at whatever, $350,000. For businesses, it doesn't work that way because the amount of financing that a bank will lend against a business will depend on the business itself. So you really can't get pre-approved to buy a certain business. And the bank might look at you and look at your personal net worth and say, yeah, we're comfortable giving you a line of credit or a loan of whatever, $250,000, but that's sort of on your own personal credit. The business itself, you should be able to borrow money against that, but you won't know the amount until you've found the business. Skill sets. So you need some level of business management experience, managing people, all those things. Take a look at your strengths. What are you good at? Are you good at sales, operations, supervisions? All these different things are sort of questions to ask yourself to help you sort of think through the best type of business to buy. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? And this is sort of asking the sales question a different way. So if you're an introvert, your approach to sales is going to be different than if you're an extrovert, and how you're going to relate to your clients and your staff. So what's been your background, and what have your successes been to date? So another way of looking at your skills and your interests is what makes you passionate. So I started this business 15 years ago because I was sort of stuck at mid-management level at RBC, and I was starting to get bored, and I was looking around, and I kept asking myself, this last question. If money were no object, what would I do? So what would I enjoy doing that I could see myself doing for the rest of my life if I didn't have to worry about getting a paycheck? And the more I thought through that question, the more I came, and assuming I enjoy traveling, but the reality is you can't travel 6 months or 12 months of the year. I mean, first of all, you'd run out of money, but I mean, I guess if money truly were no object, but even then, would you really, if you won the lottery tomorrow, would you really spend the rest of your life just traveling around doing nothing? I mean, I think I'd get bored. I'd be great for the first year, but that's about it. So as I was thinking through these questions, I thought, well, what I enjoy working with business owners, helping business owners through complex situations, and so that sort of guided me in my in my path in terms of things that I get excited about. So I mentioned sort of as you're trying to think through what are you looking for. I mean, these are some of the practical questions to ask yourself. Look, do you want employees? Are you looking for a business where you can run it from home and it's just you? Then that sort of points you in one direction. Or are you looking for a business that's going to have 5 or 10 or 50 or 100 employees? And so what you know, by answering that question, that helps narrow down the types of businesses that make sense. I mean, how many hours a week do you want to work? Are you looking for something that'll give you part-time income? Or are you looking for, you know, full-time, like if you're working right now and you're making $70,000 a year, are you looking for a business that'll pay you at least that? Or are you looking for something where you could double or triple that? I mean, all that is a question. How much income are you looking for? Are you going to be the manager, or do you want to hire someone? Now, I had an interesting email exchange with a guy yesterday who was looking to buy a business, and he inquired about a specific business from our website, and he said, you know, can this business run itself? And so I emailed him. I said, well, theoretically, yes, but the current owner will, when he sells it, will leave. So you could come in and you could structure that business so it runs itself, so you don't have to work there, but the onus is on you as the buyer to do that. It's not currently set up that way. So it's theoretically possible to own a business where you're not actually working 40 hours a week running it. You've got someone in place to do it. But that's something that you have to manage and hire someone and train them and put all the systems in place that make sure your manager isn't ripping you off. What industry do you have experience in? So all these questions are things to look at as you're trying to think through what makes sense for you. So just the types of things to look at. I get asked a lot about what industry is a good industry, and I've looked at a whole bunch of different industries, and they all have good businesses and they all have bad businesses. I mentioned restaurants. Restaurants, there's a lot of bad performing restaurants out there that barely make any money, but there's a lot of superstar restaurants out there. So pick any industry you want, even riskier ones, and there's good players and bad players. So the types of things to look at in any business is the owner compelled to sell it? This is negotiation 101. If the owner is motivated to sell, you know, then he's got a reason to sell, and if you're looking to buy, that helps you in your negotiation. If the owner couldn't care less, then I mean you're going to have to pay more than if the owner's compelled to sell. It can pay you at least your present salary. Not to say you can't take a pay cut to go and run a business, especially if it's your ideal business. I mean, you can do that, but I mean we're talking about sort of the best businesses to buy. At least 5 years old. If you think about when we were talking about why buy a business, we were talking about established business, market presence, all that stuff. If it's just a startup, then really you're taking the same risk that the guy who started it did. So you want something with a track record. That's a reason to buy the business. And steady growth. Ironically, you'd think, well, gee, I want fast growth. That would be a good thing. Maybe, but if there's two downsides with fast growth. One is that means you better learn that business pretty quickly, because if you're jumping in and it's steaming along at 100 miles an hour, you better come up to speed pretty quickly. And also, the seller may have exaggerated ideas of what it's worth. So he may say, well, gee, we're doubling every year, so I really want $1 million for this business. And it's like, well, it's not worth $1 million now. It might be 3 years from now, but he's selling it now. So if you want steady growth, because if it's too fast, it'll be either overpriced or risky. And of course, if it's too slow or declining, then that's not necessarily a good business either. So the essential checklist that you want to start asking yourself is like, the first question is, what is the owner selling? And there's two ways of looking at this. One is like from a technical point of view, shares versus assets, because you can buy a business either way, and there's tax implications for you and there's tax implications for the seller that we can't really get into here, but that's sort of one of the questions asked. Is the guy selling his corporation, or is he selling the assets under the business? From a business point of view, what are the elements of goodwill? So why are you paying this guy whatever the price is for the business? So typically in a business purchase, there's a certain amount of the price is called goodwill. When you buy a business, there's a whole bunch of assets, tables and chairs and projectors and computers, and all that stuff is included, maybe vehicles and trucks or whatever, all that's included. But typically the actual price will be above the sum of all those assets. That amount that's above, that's the goodwill. And the reason that you're paying for that is because you want an established business. That's the turnkey component that you're paying for. You're paying someone above and beyond just the value of the assets because it's a profitable business. What's the opportunity? What's the upside in the business? So if you buy this business, how are you going to take it from the way it is currently operating to the next level? How is the price determined? So if the guy's running a small business and he wants like $10 million, well, where do you come up with that number? Does anyone here watch Shark Tank or Dragon's Den? Yeah, they always force the person to say, what is your ask? So you want $100,000 for 10% of your business. Okay, so you're saying your entire business is worth $1 million. Well, where's that number from? So when you're a buyer, you want to ask, well, where's that number from? And if the seller or the seller's broker can't explain it, then it's like, okay, well, they just made up the number. So what financing is available? So obviously talk to your bank about what financing you can get on this business, but also in some cases a seller may finance some of it, as I mentioned earlier. A good question is always, why is the seller selling? So what's motivating the seller to sell? Is it retirement, or does the seller know something that you really need to know? So that's the question you want to ask. Some other questions, like how long has the business been in business? So again, what's the track record? The longer it's been in business, the more hopefully the more positive reputation it has, and the more hopefully it's worth. And how long the present owner has owned the business. So there are some businesses, maybe the current owner just bought it 2 years ago, and so maybe it's been around for a while, but he bought it 2 years ago and now he's looking to sell it. So I mean, that would raise the next question: why is he looking to sell? So it's a good business. Hopefully you got the financials and they look good, but the owner is now all of a sudden selling after only 2 years. So what does he know that you need to know? Some other questions. So is the seller willing to train? If so, for how long? So typical in a small business might be a month. If it's bigger or more complex, it could be 6 months or a year. We're just working on a deal now where the owner is going to stay on for 2 years. And so that's all part of the structure of the deal, where he'll sell the business today, and then he'll work for 2 years and receive additional compensation for that, just to help transition the business. Now that's it's not that that's a huge business, but it's a fairly complicated business, and it relies heavily on the owner's contacts. So that's a good solution. If you're in my earlier seminar on how to maximize value, I emphasize try and remove yourself as the owner from the detailed operations of the business. One way of selling your business, if you haven't been able to do that, is sort of that type of deal where it's a longer transition. So the training period, rather than being a month or two, is 6 months, 2 years, or whatever. Sign a non-compete. You want to make sure that the seller won't, as soon as he sells you his business, he won't open up as a competitor next door. Now there are sort of legal issues on non-competes. You want to get advice from your lawyer. But in general, I mean, I think you can probably figure out one that's reasonably constrictive. So you can't necessarily ban someone from ever working in that field ever again anywhere in Canada. If you write it too broadly, then it'll be struck down in the courts. But I mean, you can sort of say, okay, anywhere within 3 miles of this location, or depending on the type of business, anywhere within the city of Winnipeg or whatever. Is there a lease in place, and can you take it over? Is it assignable to you as the buyer? This can be very important if location is a key issue. We just finished a transaction in the fall where basically the lease, actually 4 separate leases in 4 separate malls, was the key asset this business had. So the business wasn't hugely profitable, but they had 4 leases in malls that would have been hard to get into otherwise. So just to sort of conclude this, what does it take to be successful in a business? Basically, it's hard work. Talk to a lot of people, and people sort of have this idea that you own your own business and you sit in the corner office and give orders and rake in the cash. And I don't know too many businesses that are like that. I mean, if you're looking for a business that you don't have to actually work in it, I suggest to people, look at, passive real estate or stock market investing or whatever. Typically, owners that I know are, chief cook and bottle washer. They're doing a bit of everything, and certainly the smaller the business, the more tasks you have to take on as the business owner. So, just to sort of summarize the sequence of events, if you're looking to buy, step 1, what are you looking for? So, I mean, you as with anything in life, you need to sort of determine where you want to get to in order to get there. So, what are you looking for? What do you want? And I walked you through a list of questions to ask yourself to determine or to narrow down what it is you're looking for. As you're looking at different businesses, the more you have that checklist and the more you can go through those things, and you can quickly weed out ones that just aren't of interest. As you're getting more and more serious with any one business, make sure you can look quickly at the financial and non-financial information that will affect the business value, and determine, if you're prepared to pay the price that they're asking for. And then as soon as you found the right one, get ready to move forward quickly. We had a business for sale. We started marketing it just before Christmas, and by mid-January, so ignoring the like 2 weeks that nothing happens in Canada for the 2 weeks right around Christmas. So we started marketing just before Christmas. It was a good, solid business. By mid-January, we had 3 offers on it, and it was sold within a week. So if you find a good, solid business, make sure you're ready to move quickly, get into due diligence and structuring the actual legal documents. So just a bit more in terms of the types of things that we do in terms of helping people buy businesses. Certainly, if you're looking at a business that you've got, we can help you with the valuation. We do act as a business broker, so the businesses that we are representing the seller, we're actually conflicted out of doing a formal valuation on. So the valuation component of our services works when you've found a business on your own, and you come to me and say, how much is this worth? The next step after that is we can help you with the due diligence and the deal structure and the financing. So that's all. When you've found a business and you're looking to make an offer or whatever, we can help you through that process. We also do what we refer to as a proactive search. And so this works best when you can narrow down exactly what you're looking for. So we've done it successfully within Winnipeg. We're working with a client now who's looking Canada-wide for a specific type of business. And so we've contacted probably at this stage, probably about 300 different businesses across Canada and to see if any of them would be interested in selling. And we've had some good discussions with a handful of them that look promising. So the buyer has hired us to represent his interests. So we do that about 10% of our time. As you might imagine, 90% of our brokerage activity, we're working on behalf of the seller, just like you would with real estate where you list a business. And then so if you're looking to buy a business, we can certainly help you as a business broker working to sell businesses. We have on our website a list of most of our businesses that we're selling are on our website. The ones that aren't on our website tend to be a bit more either specialized or larger ones. We don't really put on our website because they typically we know who the most likely buyer is and we just approach them directly. So the next steps, now I don't have a survey here with me. I was going to print it and bring it, but I forgot. But like I said, take a look at our website if you're interested in buying a business. We have a list there. And then also download our new ebook on how to buy a business. So this half-page thing is in the back there, and there's some up here. It's got a link to our ebook. So if you want to download that, it goes through sort of everything we just talked about and in much more detail on the steps to buy a business. Feel free to take my business card and brochure or stop by my booth. But thank you for attending and good luck.